Tonight on Localite with John Compton, Jock Bradley shares his passion for photography. Jock has photographed all over the world and throughout the Pacific Northwest. Whether it's landscapes, sports, editorials, or ads, Jock Bradley captures the photos that grab your attention and stir your soul. That's all tonight on Localite.
Jock Bradley, it's good to have you on.
Thank you, John. It's nice to be here.
Well, good. Let's start off with, when did you get into photography? Where did that come about? How did you start out there?
It started in high school.
Okay.
And, it was a yearbook thing, and I can remember picking up my first Minolta film camera and going, wow, this is amazing. And it's been 30-something years since then.
Few years back.
Yeah, a couple of centuries, I think.
So it started out in high school, and at that time when you were fascinated with it, did you have plans or aspirations then to go into it professionally?
Yeah, I mean, I went to film school. As soon as I got out of high school, I went into film school thinking, I could become the next Francis Ford Coppola or, Scorsese or whatever. And when I realized after about a year that probably wasn't going to be the case, that's when I kind of went back to the photography, and I've kind of stuck with it ever since.
So photography was sort of your first love?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And that's really why I went to film school. So.
And so you went to film school, and then how long after film school did you make that transition into, you know what, I'm probably not going to be, Steven Spielberg or one of those guys, so I'm going to go ahead and go back to what I know and love?
Well, it took me about a year and a half, and then I decided that college probably wasn't the fast track for me. So I wound up working for a small little newspaper in Bennington, Vermont, and just as a straight photographer. Unfortunately, no writing was involved, and so I did that for about 6 months before then moving to New York City, going back to school for commercial purposes. I kind of realized that the journalism thing where I was sticking my lens in places where it really didn't belong wasn't really for me. So, and also, I kind of felt like I needed to make some money, so I wanted to get into the commercial aspect. So I went to the Fashion Institute of New York City for another year and a half, dropped out of that, and then started assisting a variety of commercial photographers in New York.
So when you went to film school, then, was that in New York as well?
Well, New York State. It was up in Ithaca.
Ithaca, okay. Not Cornell?
No,
okay.
Right across the valley, though,
okay.
Ithaca College.
Okay. So then once you got into commercial, because you said you didn't really want to do journalism.
Right.
And because there's not really money in that, or because is it just totally different worlds?
Combination. Part of it was, I guess I decided that for me, trying to make a statement in photographing, I don't know, the hardships of life wasn't really who I'm about.
And that's probably the majority of what you'd be photographing in.
A lot of it was, even when I was working at this newspaper. I mean, there were things that, house fires and some people dying and that sort of thing, that it just that's not kind of who I am.
Yeah.
So it was partly that, and also, I kind of wanted to make some money.
Yeah, yeah. So what was that like, making that transition? Was that...
Well,
did it happen quickly?
It really did. As soon as I moved to New York, then it was completely into the commercial world. And then also moving from school and working as an assistant to a variety of commercial photographers, I was fully immersed in the whole commercial thing. And I assisted everybody from still life photographers doing tabletop shots to fashion photographers and celebrity photographers. So I kind of got a pretty good perspective of what was out there.
When you say assisted, what exactly does that mean?
It's kind of in a restaurant, it'd be like being a sous chef. It's being the photographer's right hand, or, in some cases on really big shoots where there might be multiple assistants, it might be anyone between 1 and 5 assistants that was on the set. So, and it was doing lighting, changing camera backs, whatever needed to be done.
Okay, so you kind of had to be a jack of all trades.
Absolutely.
In that. So were you actually doing much of the photograph the actual photographing, looking down the lens and all of that?
Not to the point where I was being paid, but you'd set up the shot for the photographer in some cases. So you kind of had a little bit of that, and particularly somebody that you worked with regularly, where you understood their style and they trusted you. Then you'd be responsible for either making the set, doing the lighting, and ultimately setting up the camera. So the photographer could just walk in and then lend his or her touch to whatever was being done.
So that probably had a lot of impact on your ability to then branch out and go completely on your own, because you sort of knew all the roles.
Absolutely. And the other thing was pre-production and the business aspect. This is something that, was a huge education. So it's the sort of thing where maybe at a school like Brooks they teach, but really it's working out in the street. It's the best education you can get, at least for a photographer.
Yeah. Is the business side of it as enjoyable as the actual photographing side?
Not for me.
No. Okay. No. But it's a huge, crucial piece. And so you have to have that.
Right. Well, and I think that one thing that a lot of photographers or new photographers, they kind of mistake is that they create something really fabulous. They take some great pictures. What they forget is that unless they bring it to the world doesn't care. So probably 75%, 80% of my time is the post-production. After I've gotten the shot, it's bringing it out to the world. And for a creative mind, that's really the hard work. And no, I do it, but it's not what I call enjoyable. I'd much rather be behind a camera.
Yeah. Because like you say, if your work isn't being seen, it's really what,
You're working in a vacuum.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Yeah, who cares? Well, I want to talk to you when we come back from the break about when you did actually make that leap to go out on your own, and obviously you've been pretty successful at that, so we'll talk about that. So be right back. Stick with us.
Up next.
And so I found myself, spending most of my time out of New York.
Okay.
And I'm a country boy at heart. I was raised in a town about the size of Hood River.